Hello there, welcome, and thank you for joining me. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter, and this is Overtime. Well, yeah, signs of the apocalypse. We're on time, Tony. Jesus, we overtime is on time. Yeah, if you're a little flexible with the timing. Uh, we are today streaming to Periscope, Facebook. For the breaking news updates, we often do that. You want to see our regular shows? Just sign up for us on YouTube. We just had on Christopher Mowdy to discuss justice and communication. I think that was a great show. We had scheduled for Tuesday Dr. Richard Carrier and Ozzy to discuss philosophy of religion. That has to be postponed. We are in the process of rescheduling that. Dr. Carrier will be joining us. We're going to discuss the religion of Adolf Hitler. What religion was he? What does the evidence suggest? Many people like to troll atheists and say he was an atheist. Certainly, he seemed to hunt down atheists, very similar to gays and Jews. He was he a Christian? He professed to be. I personally think that's probably unlikely in most senses. But we're going to have that discussion on Tuesday. We're looking forward to it. That's only going to be on YouTube. So if you want to see that, Periscope, it won't be available. Won't be available on any other platform. But for the rest of the time, we usually do simulcast. We are also broadcasting the back end, the live feed, to the Discord. If you want to become a patron, join us. We could really use your support. We appreciate that, and we appreciate the support of all our patrons. And we'll often actually start to broadcast the back end feed about 5 or 10 minutes before the show. You can see us scrambling to get the thing together and maybe chat with the guests a bit and see what's going on. So the green room, we'll put that back in the Discord. And right now, the feed is in fact in the Discord. So hope you'll join us for that. After today's show, there's going to be a tremendous amount to discuss. After today's show, I will be in the Discord in the after show room. We're going to sit and chat, talk about what's been going on, which is remarkable. I say that every single time, and it doesn't seem to change or get any better. In fact, every time I think I've seen it all. Now, some people, I remember during the Iranian missile thing with the missiles going into the green zone, people were saying, "Oh, this is World War III. It's the end of," and there were signs that people said were of the end times, and people are always saying that. When the cannon was invented, people said that it's the end of the world. There's a cannon now. Walls cannot hold anybody out. Wars are going to just become, it's all free for all, and the human race is going to get wiped out. So that didn't happen. We're always talking about the end of the world, but there have been some truly remarkable events. I am an atheist, so I do exercise calm, but I've been spooked by one in particular. I think everybody does know what I'm talking about, so we're gonna start with that. I think it's the elephant in the room. We will cover that, and then we're going to get on to all the other stuff. But obviously, this is big, and we'll have to get it. Before I do, Jake 4D, $2. Overtime is less than 30 minutes late or free. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's going to be free a lot of the time then, I imagine. But okay. Um, so yeah, so we'll discuss. Lot to discuss. So let's talk about the one that I think really everybody's most upset about, and I think we all have the biggest problem with. We're going to be adults. We're going to discuss it. We're going to move on. Kanye West, the American rapper who announced his candidacy on July 4th by tweeting a picture of his face on Mount Rushmore, is now polling at 2% nationwide. In his statement of candidacy, when asked to list a party affiliation, he replied, quote, "birthday party." The birthday party candidate is now officially recognized as a candidate in Oklahoma and will appear on the presidential ballot there. We're going to figure out. We're going to make a poll. What constitutes the end of civilization? Don't know what it is. I'm not saying I have the answers. I am saying I believe we have to be getting reasonably close. Justice of the Supreme Court Ruth Bader Ginsburg has announced that her cancer has returned. She has begun a new round of chemotherapy. She is 87 and has said that she is fully able to continue in her job as a justice on the Supreme Court. If she either retires or dies, and Donald Trump is still in office, this will ostensibly give him another Supreme Court pick and put him one step closer towards packing the court. Obviously, we're going to keep an eye on that. As a result of the lockdown or people's inability to work, a record 32% of homeowners or renters were unable to pay their mortgage or rent this month, or I should say last month. This month, the month the data was collected. This is leading to a record 20 million people, roughly 20% of the 110 million Americans who are renting, who now face eviction by the end of September. While a number of states, and in fact the federal government, have issued at least a partial moratorium on evictions and foreclosures, a number of states, including Texas and South Carolina, have actually allowed these foreclosures to resume. The federal moratorium, which expires on July 25th, actually had a number of people getting around it. This was cute. People who wanted to evict someone for failing to pay their mortgage. This was made illegal by a temporary federal moratorium on it. And what was done by a number of management companies was to bypass this moratorium by not evicting them for failure to pay their mortgage, but evicting them for failure to maintain by the terms of the contract they signed. Specifically the part that said they'd pay their mortgage, but that notwithstanding, they were being evicted for failure to comply with their contract. As of yet, I'm unaware of any cases that went to court over this. I think if you can't afford to pay your rent and you get evicted, you probably can't afford to pay a lawyer to get yourself back in, and any lawyer will probably tell you there still isn't much you can do about it, because even if you win, what you get back is going to be maybe some damages, maybe the extra time, which will have passed by the time, because the federal moratorium will have expired. It's a nightmare, but apparently there have been a number of cases of doing end runs like that that have been successful. So this is why a universal basic income, at least as a temporary emergency measure, would probably have made sense. It would have cost $5 trillion for 1 year. $5 trillion for 1 year. Keep in mind the first bailout was for about $2 trillion. However, while this is significantly more than a bailout, and that first bailout's already all spent, by the way. It's been well less than a year since that bailout. The net cost would have been only $2 trillion over the course of the year. The reason for that is this: the money actually gets pumped back into the economy and becomes a part of the GDP. If instead of a moratorium on foreclosures, instead of giving people a single one-time cash injection, you give them enough money that can actually cover their rent. They pay their rent. You get to tax the money that comes in. When the landlord or the management company takes that money in, that's income for them. That gets taxed. They then spend that money on repairs to the houses, anything else that needs to be done, and that money starts going back into the economy, again, as GDP. Does all of it go in? Is it a one-to-one? No. But a lot of it does, such that the experts, for the most part, believe that for 1 year, a UBI that could allow people to pay their rent and a minimum amount of groceries, or however many are in the family, because you get UBI based on the number of people, would have cost only $2 trillion, which we have now already spent, and you would not have had to evict anyone from their homes. Nonetheless, that does appear to, the opportunity for that appears to have passed. They are considering now a second cash injection and a second bailout of some kind. We're going to look at that at some point. The details on that, nobody knows. However, when asked about alternatives to this flat bailout and alternatives to just giving everybody cash or some cash to some people, you were there. It was crazy. Spokesman Judy Deere told the Washington Post, this is White House spokesman Judy Deere told the Washington Post, quote, every American has been affected from the closure of our economy to caring for the sick and mourning those tragically lost. But under the leadership of President Trump, our transition to greatness has already begun. A 30-year-old was admitted into a hospital in Texas. He had attended a COVID party. This party was designed to prove that COVID was fake. It didn't exist. They were all going to come together. They were going to interact socially. I don't know what that means. It's probably none of my business what that meant at that party. Nonetheless, they were all going to leave and prove, by no one having gotten infected, that COVID was fake. He was admitted into the hospital, or at least not particularly serious. He contracted COVID, and despite being 30 years old, his body was unable to fight off the infection. He died last week at Methodist Hospital in San Antonio. His last words were, "I think I made a mistake. I thought it was a hoax." An unpublished report from the White House Coronavirus Task Force recommends that 18 states, including California and Florida, roll back and or immediately cease their opening and or, in most cases, return to a state of lockdown immediately. In Texas and Arizona, the number of dead have exceeded the capacity of morgues, and hospitals are beginning to use refrigerated trucks to store the bodies. In Hidalgo County in Texas, this being one of the counties in which Governor Greg Abbott famously announced that hospitals were fine, and he anticipated there would be no overwhelming of the hospitals and plenty of room. He announced that about a week before the capacity problems began to get rather serious. In that county, the average wait time for an ambulance, the max wait time was about 30 minutes. 30 minutes was their max wait time for about a 1 year period. Ambulances in Hidalgo County are now waiting in lines for up to 10 hours before there is room to bring those patients into the emergency room. Some patients are being forced to fly up to 120 miles to reach an available hospital. These wait times are also drastically increasing the risk for EMTs, nurses, and doctors because they are now spending a greater period of time in a closed environment, such as an ambulance, trying to care for a very sick patient. Fewer times in between washing, cleaning, while they are waiting to be seen. This is prompting many experts to say that they expect reasonably soon a new wave of COVID patients, this among exclusively medical service personnel, which will include doctors, but will especially include people on the front lines, including EMTs, ambulance drivers, EMS services, and so on. This overload that we're seeing, knowing full well that the number of sick is going to continue to increase rapidly, and we cannot stop it, is about to be met with a significant shortage of medical personnel. Kwesa, 10,000 won. Will the U.S. system be able to fairly distribute a UBI? Will those people be able to, with ties to Congress, people gorge that as well? The idea behind a UBI would be that everybody gets a flat amount no matter who you are. So one proposal would be every U.S. citizen gets, if I recall, one of the proposals would be $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month. Every U.S. citizen, $1,000 a month. That's $12,000 a year. Well below the poverty line. Well, I don't know. Well below. I think the poverty line is about 13,000, maybe 14,000. I don't. It keeps moving. But if you have that kind of money, and everybody would get it. A millionaire would get it, ostensibly. It makes no difference to a millionaire. No difference at all. If you are below the poverty line already, that's huge. That's huge. And if you're at risk to losing your house, and depending on where you are, I mean, mortgages tend to be expensive, but if you're paying $600, $700 in rent, That's rent and some food. If you're a married family, both the family members would get it, and ostensibly, depending on how this would be done, your kids might only get it. Sorry, your kids might also each get a UBI as well. So for a family of four, that's $4,000 a month. That can sustain a family, barely, but it can sustain a family. It can make all the difference. Again, this actually is a handout. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a handout. But first of all, it would allow you to roll back some expenses in other social services, Social Security, a few others. You could possibly roll some of that back. Social Security, maybe not, because it doesn't matter. There's other services you could probably roll back. You'd probably have a boost in the general health of the country, because people could now at least pay for doctors and or some preventative medicine. Not a lot, but some. Meaning fewer trips to the ER, yada, yada, yada. So, and again, it could be just temporary, but I think it's a lot better than handing everybody out a percentage based on their taxes. That's a one-time thing. They spend it, and then big bonuses for companies, which has sort of happened because we've got to keep the companies afloat. We don't need to keep the companies afloat. I'm sorry. This nation is entering a state of triage, and we've talked about triage before. It's an important subject, and we may discuss it again. This country is entering a state of triage. If most Americans end up bankrupt, out of a home, unable to work, all these other. If that's what happens, what good was it bailing out the companies? That's something that neoliberals have yet to explain to me in a way that I can understand. Regardless, thank you, Kwesa. Thank you very much, Kwesa, for the super chat. Thank you, Jake 4D, for the super chat. We sincerely appreciate it. Moving forward. Let's see. The medical system in Texas and Florida is either at or in excess of capacity in a large number of areas. What we're actually going to show now, let's put up, I would like to show for everyone right now, just very briefly, this is Texas. The dark red is everywhere where they are over 80% of capacity. Now, I'd like to see one. I don't have a chart. I apologize. We don't have a chart of 100% or over. A number of them are over 100%, 107. But the dark red is 80% or higher, meaning they really can't take. That's Texas. That's as of, I believe, 8 hours ago. So, in a system that is already nearing at or exceeding capacity in many places, we are looking at a wave of infections amongst first responders. That's going to be a very serious problem. And I don't think anyone's discussing it or figured out how to address that. Last week, Governor Abbott banned all elective procedures in over 100 counties and said that if this trend continues, he might consider a second lockdown. Not that they really did much for the first one, but they sort of did, and I applaud at least that they finally came around to that. He is now considering a second one, or he would consider a second one if this trend continues. Pro tip, it's not going to continue. It's going to get worse. I'm not wrong. John Henderson, president of the Texas Organization for Rural and Community Hospitals, said, quote, "Most everything we've seen is worrisome or scary." Hidalgo County Judge Richard Cortez described the influx of patients as a tsunami. In Cameron County, all hospitals are at or above capacity. Patients are waiting in hallways. They are waiting outside. They're waiting on the floor. And there is at present no indication that this is going to improve even in the slightest, and every indication that this is going to get significantly worse. Because of the 2-week lag, which we've talked about time and time and time again, and I won't waste anyone's time going over it anymore, because of the 2-week lag, if everybody decides, ooh, this is a problem, let's lock down right now, the problem will continue to get worse. At the exponential rate was doubling every 3 days. Now it's at least somewhat better because of social distancing, but it's going to continue to get worse at the exponential rate. Whatever, we don't know what it is for now, but for another 2 weeks. And the deaths will continue another 2 weeks past that. We've seen a number of people, including Trump, who said, hey, look, the deaths have been going down. First of all, they're going back up again. Second of all, they're a lagging indicator, 2 weeks behind infections, 2 weeks behind whatever it is we've done. So infections always go up as a lagging indicator, 2 weeks behind anything we do. The deaths come up as a second lagging indicator to the infections. So the deaths are going to change a month after something else. So if we want to get those death rates to go down, we can lock down today, and they'll start to go down in 1 month. That's how it works. Nothing's going to change it. Florida reports its fourth consecutive day with more than 100 coronavirus deaths. At latest report, as of just a few hours ago, they had 11,466 new cases and 128 deaths in a single day, with a statewide total now of 4,850. Health officials in Florida now say that 54,000 children who have been tested. There have been 54,000 children tested for COVID-19. Over 16,000 of them, almost 17,000, roughly 31%, have tested positive. They've been averaging an 11% positivity rate. Nobody knows why the positivity rate in children in Florida is up to 31%. Nobody knows. So far, the evidence has indicated that children are not as much of a vector for this disease as others. They appear to be somewhat resistant to it, not immune, and they can apparently carry it, but not as badly. This was some of the idea behind allowing the schools to open. Having said that, even countries which had a lockdown, and I think it was, if I recall, it was Norway that did this, had the lockdown but left the schools open, their rates were still significantly higher than other Scandinavian countries that had the lockdown and closed the schools. They weren't as high as countries like Germany and other countries that did the lockdown late, but they were still high. We don't know. But the notion that children are not at least nearly as strong a vector for this disease as adults seems to be undermined by Florida. It would be Florida. I'm sorry, snarky. Nobody knows. They're looking into it. For some reason, in this particular case, the children are testing at a much higher positivity rate. Dr. Anthony Fauci has said that instead of attempting to deal with the problem of a second wave, which would be in the future, this is actually still the first wave technically. We refer to it as a second wave often because that's how people see it. It's not accurate, but that's just the easiest way to talk to people about it. This is still the first wave because we never got it under control and we didn't stop it the first time. So this is the first wave. Hasn't been a second wave yet. Instead of talking about a second wave in the fall, a wave that would coincide with an increase in the seasonal flu and all the other things that we would normally have to deal with that would get people to get sick and die anyway. Instead of focusing on that, what we need to do is try to get it under control now. He said we need to focus our efforts on the current wave striking us right now. Quote, when you have up to 70,000 new infections, that's something you need to focus on, as opposed to looking at what's going to happen in September or October. In a staggering move, Donald Trump has stripped the CDC of control over the nation's coronavirus data. He has ordered public civilian hospitals to bypass the CDC and send all of their COVID statistical data to a central database in Washington. This has alarmed a number of health experts who fear that this is going to be used in an attempt to politicize the COVID data, and it is going to reduce transparency since the CDC is not a political organization and the White House de facto is. The president continues to spin a false narrative that the climbing numbers are the result of his overwhelming success in combating the virus and the result of the increased testing which he has ordered. Any data which contradicts this is no longer available by any independent organization. The only organization which has been capable of handling the data in real time and updating everybody as to the national status every day is no longer allowed to collect the data, and any data they have, they are no longer allowed to update. it appears that the White House is incapable of processing that vast quantity of data at a rate at which, even if they intended on perfect transparency, would allow them to make that data available to everyone. They're not designed to do that. The CDC is. That's why they're doing it. The tip-off is the title, the Centers for Disease Control. It is widely believed that this move will hinder an already slow response to the COVID crisis and make access to life-saving data far more difficult, if not impossible. Former Secretary for Emergency Preparedness Response in the United States, Nicole Lori, said, quote, "Centralizing control of all data under the umbrella of an inherently political apparatus is dangerous and breeds distrust for it. It cuts off the ability of agencies like the CDC to perform even the most basic functions of their job." Indeed, the Center for Disease Control National Healthcare and Safety Network Dashboard, a public and centralized database of the most up-to-date COVID information across the country, has now gone dark. Its latest updates on mortality rates, hospital occupants, hospital wait times, projections of the direction of this virus, hospital capacity levels are no longer available. And whereas that's one of the sources In Time uses to get its data, In Time will have a much harder time in the future telling you what's going on statewide across the country in regards to COVID, because now all of that information goes to the White House and is released if and when they choose, in the way that they choose, knowing that they have modified data in the past, such as, for example, the NOAA weather map, which contradicted Trump's assertions, so he took out a Sharpie and corrected the obviously incorrect weather map made by a number of experts who know a lot more than he does about it. This is stunning, and to me personally, scary. We need that data. The White House cannot possibly release it accurately and in the volume that the CDC has been doing, because it's the CDC's job to do that. The White House has never even attempted to. They don't have the infrastructure for it, and that's assuming they want to be transparent with it. And given what Trump does to people who throw facts in the face of the Lysol freebasing president, I have no confidence that the data we get will be accurate. So now people have to fight a grossly political move to try to get this life-saving information into the hands of the general public while having to fight the disease. In case people, I've been called on occasion for saying that he advocates freebasing Lysol. I have been called out on occasion as that's not what he said. Of course that's not what he said. I'm using some hyperbole, not much. Let's see what he said. On April 23rd, he had been asked about ways of dealing with COVID. His reply was as follows. A question that probably some of you are thinking of if you're totally into that world, which I find to be very interesting, period. I'm going to have to say some of the punctuation because he doesn't quite speak as most people would expect. So, supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said it hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting, right? And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And there's a way we can do something like that by injecting inside or almost a cleaning, because you see it gets in the lungs and it does a tremendous number on the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So you're going to have to get to use medical doctors with, but it sounds interesting to me, so we'll see. But The whole concept of light, the way it kills in 1 minute, that's pretty powerful. He suggested injecting household cleaners, and the next day, in a state where 3 people a year call poison control for the accidental ingestion of household cleaners, the state of New York, actually I think in the city of New York, so I apologize, had 19 people call poison control because they thought that this was a good idea. I'm sorry I said that he was freebasing or suggested freebasing Lysol. My bad. Jake, 4D, another $2 super chat. Thank you very much, Sir Jake. Opening schools is tantamount to murdering teachers. We've talked a lot about what happens to opening schools to the students. Not many people have talked about the teachers, which I find only slightly ironic because we talk about the importance of teaching, but we don't really care about teachers because we don't pay them well. And I know people say, well, they get summers off and they get paid. And in some cases, they actually do get paid reasonably well. What that pay does not include is the fact that teachers have to spend time after school. They have to spend loads of professional time. Those first Tuesdays or Wednesdays of the month that the kids get off because there's a professional development day that us parents always hate because we're like, why do teachers have to do this on their, why can't they do it on their time? Well, because on their time they're doing curriculum planning. That's also what they're doing over the summers. Summers off, the teachers have to make the curriculum. It's not handed to them by the district. So the district gives them guidelines. The teachers have to do it. That's part of their job. I worked as a teacher. I calculated my basic pay, and it came out to, for my first year, about $11 an hour based on how much time I was actually spending. $11 an hour for teachers. So we don't really care about teachers in this country, and that's fine. But we will discuss, I think, at some point, a number of teachers' unions and teachers will come out and said, hey, why are we only talking about the kids who may or may not be vectors for this? Keep in mind, somebody has to teach them. And while I know it's we enjoy in this country saying, well, you should teach for the love of it. Forget having to pay to feed your family. You should teach because you love it. I think teachers shouldn't have to put their lives on the line to teach the students. I agree that you should find it rewarding. I agree that you should love it. But I think that not only should you get paid for it anyway, I don't think it should be expected that you're just going to put your life on the line to teach your students. And if we're going to say that it should be fine, but we're going to end up with the same problem we've got with the medical institution right now, which is all the teachers are going to get sick, and a lot of them are going to die. Then what? And by the way, what do you think is the average age of a teacher? Because the kids may be in a demographic that isn't going to get hard hit. But do you want to know how many teachers are in a demographic that will? The idea that President of the United States who is ostensibly a Republican, meaning he is supposed to think that the states should make these decisions for themselves. The idea that he is going to say that states are going to open their schools no matter what, and that he's going to pull federal funding if they don't, I was going to say is insane and unhinged, but it's pretty much just Tuesday in this administration. I will say it's also Tuesday when the state of Texas gets an exemption from that order. I'm sure the fact that it's a conservative state has nothing to do with the fact that it got an exemption. People may say, well, it's the hardest hit state, so that's why. It is today. When New York was the hardest hit state, Trump had nothing but contempt for New York. When New York said, we need help, could the federal government help us? Said, we'll tell you how much help you need and we'll give it to you. I said, no, your numbers are wrong. This is what we need. Well, we're not going to give it to you. And in fact, if you want access to the national stockpile, which is by mandate here to help the state, we're going to keep that too. Except for Texas. I think I may have said that was going to happen. Apologies for the horn toot. Take 4D, $5. The White House takes CDC seriously. CDC's White House takes CDC's seriously. History. This is where I will say the data gets fuzzy from here, but at least we can estimate that it was million. Yeah. No, I think what's going to happen is I think there's going to be a bit of a revolt at this point. People are starting to get really fucking pissed at this man. Um, States are starting to just say we're on our own. We are on our own. So my suspicion is somebody is going to take the lead. Some organization is going to take the lead and say, send us the data. Send us the data. He cannot stop them from doing it, especially if they're civilian. If it's a hospital that belongs to a state, if they can convince the governors of those states to send the data to them, they send it to the White House because the White House has requested it, and they may be required to send it to the White House. Send a copy to a neutral third, or somebody hopefully is going to take over. Somebody is going to try to get this under control. It ain't going to be as effective as the CDC, but we're on our own, and we're going to have to find a way to collect data and talk to each other and see how we as a country can help our fellow Americans and other states despite the best efforts of President Donald J. Trump. And that is the first time I've ever said his full name with the word president before it. It is no joke. All right. Little triggered. So let's see, CDC. So at this point, yeah, and I'm glad he's in the process of making this country great. I would hate to see what would happen if that's not what he was doing. At this point, it's going to become a lot harder to collect this data. And we've already talked about, we're about to talk about what happens when you don't have accurate data in time. Let's see. On top of this, the White House. Yeah, well, first of all, my suspicion is he's going to start withholding any data that contradicts anything he said, which is quite a lot of fucking data, because he makes shit up all the time, including maybe we can inject household cleaners. And he did say that. I got the date, I got the quote. He said maybe we could inject household cleaners. So anything that suggests that that was one of the stupidest fucking things ever uttered by a president of this country finds their ability to say that capped at the knees somehow. So fine. He's a genius. He's one of the greatest presidents we've ever had. Could we please have access to the data and we can pretend? I'm okay with that, but we need the data. Anything that contradicts him now appears he doesn't want anyone to have it. We have withdrawn from the World Health Organization, which means that we have now undermined the two biggest organizations that this country has access to in their ability to try to save lives. That's their only job. These are not political organizations. The CDC is not a political organization. It's been around through many administrations. The World Health Organization makes some mistakes. For the most part, good fucking organization. And in this, the single worst pandemic in 100 years. And Trump has kneecapped both deliberately. Attacked both. So it's an attack to say we're going to withdraw from the World Health Organization. If you really think we should, let's wait until the crisis is over. On top of that, he is now apparently deliberately trying to undermine Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is the head of the coronavirus task force and of the, I've forgotten the other organization, not the CDC, somebody will pop it up in the live chat. I apologize. But at this point, the administration, which has previously said that anonymous sources should be ignored and are meaningless and should not be used, has now been releasing anonymous opposition research. Opposition research is actually often research that is done by friends of the candidate. I was involved in a little opposition research on the Obama side for the Obama campaign. It's very simple. You sit down and you try to figure out what's wrong with President Obama, and if you wanted to make him look really bad, how would you do it? Now, you're a friend of Obama, but the reason you're doing that is so that you can try to get an idea of what the other team is going to do. Oppo research. Now, you get these files, you keep these files. Biden is currently doing Oppo research on any possible VP candidate. He's trying to figure out on his candidates what is the opposition going to come at them with as hard as possible. So you are an attack dog on your own allies. But you seal the records. You don't tell anybody what's in there. It's a really, this exercise would be a real problem if you started telling your enemies what you've discovered in Oppo research. Oppo research is sometimes also used as in applying to, I'm doing Oppo research against an opponent, but that's actually not usually how it's used in a political sense. So there is Oppo research on Fauci. I have no idea why Fauci would need Oppo research. He is not a politician. Oppo research is designed for politicians. It's needed for politicians. They're the ones who you would use it for. Presumably a non-political position, it's irrelevant. You wouldn't do it. However, there appears to be Oppo research on Fauci done by the Trump administration. Not only that, but it is being released piecemeal, anonymously, from members of the Trump administration in an apparent effort to undermine the credibility of the only man who really seems to know what he's doing and be advocating for trying to save American lives. He's done nothing but. Nothing but. Nobody can say he's done anything but. And he's done his best to avoid undermining this president, which is really hard to do under current circumstances. Okay, he laughed at one point when Trump said something. He laughed and he really tried to hide it. But at any rate, so opposition research has been done and is now being released against Anthony Fauci by the White House anonymously. A number of reporters have said, wait a minute, you guys have said you're against anonymous sources and that they're always wrong, and are now anonymously releasing this Oppo research. Who is releasing it and to what end? And the CDC has been asked to testify before Congress on the opening of schools. The House Education and Labor Committee has asked the CDC to send someone there to explain whether or not it would be a good idea to open schools. The CDC thinks this is such an important topic. They didn't send the janitor. They could have. They didn't. They were just asked to send somebody. They didn't send an intern. They didn't send a first-year med student. They didn't send a director or department head. They opted to send the director of the CDC, Robert Redfield, to testify before Congress on whether or not schools should reopen. President Trump blocked his testimony and has said that he cannot testify despite the CDC being now subpoenaed to testify. Violating a subpoena, you would think, is a problem. It's actually a felony to violate a subpoena from Congress. Trump's done it repeatedly. He did it several times during the impeachment hearings, where he told members of his cabinet not to go, and they decided not to go in violation of the subpoena. The problem is you could send these people to jail, but there was, in fact, and there still is, a court case winding its way through the U.S. Supreme Court on whether or not the executive branch can order its own members under ostensibly what's called executive privilege. We won't get into that now, but under executive privilege, say, no, you cannot testify before Congress despite a subpoena. Now that, in my view, appears to immediately violate checks and balances. What you're saying is Congress cannot ask members of another branch, the executive branch, the legislative branch cannot ask the executive branch to testify and be forced to tell the truth. That's insane. But because it takes longer to wind that through the Supreme Court than it does for the election to happen, he's banking on the fact that all he has to do is survive on impeachment, and if 3 years from now or 2 years from now it gets decided that what he did was wrong, fine. Impeachment's already over and he's back in office anyway. And since you can't actually try him for a crime, all you can do is impeach him and kick him out, he's fine. Nonetheless, once again, the president does appear to have blocked more attempts to try to understand just what's going on. This is just asking the head of the CDC to testify about what we should do. The White House response was, Dr. Redfield has testified on the Hill at least 3 or 4 times over the last 3 months, and we need our doctors focused on the pandemic response. Probably true. Maybe someday we'll have a president who's focused on one, because he doesn't talk about it. And there's a reason. It would be nice if we had the CDC focused on it as well, and or the World Health Organization. I agree, people should be focused on it. When he's ready to focus on it, I think he gets to tell others not to. But until then, we should have the testimony. So, between contradicting the advice of experts who have dedicated their lives to the fields of epidemiology, biology, who have all, by the way, speaking in near unison about how best to deal with the virus, between contradicting the Centers for Disease Control, between contradicting the World Health Organization, because he, Donald Trump, is an expert in all things, including and especially viruses. He has undermined public confidence in the fact that this is even a crisis, such that you get a 30-year-old boy in Texas who goes to a COVID party and says, "This isn't real because I've been watching our president. Let's have this party and I'll prove it isn't real." And his last words are, "I thought it was a hoax." At every opportunity, the President of the United States appears to be attacking any organization whose job it is solely to save lives. Meanwhile, there's still more. In Florida, the governor there has said that, yes, now coronavirus is beginning to become a problem. Governor Rick DeSantis of Florida says that the biggest reason that coronavirus is surging in the state is because the media has failed to educate people as to the severity of this. They failed to ask him the questions that they needed to ask so that the public would understand the severity of the problem. The public has become lax, and it is the media's fault. CNN approached him with video of repeated questions that were asked to him about coronavirus and him dismissing all of them and saying it wasn't a very big deal and they weren't going to sacrifice their freedoms for going to the beach. Governor of New York, when New York was hit by this crisis, didn't wait for the media to ask him questions. He went out and held briefings, and he chastised the President of the United States, and he chastised anybody who got in his way of protecting his constituents. Rick DeSantis has done nothing of the kind. Nothing of the kind. It's the media's fault for not asking him the right questions. Possibly. Opening the beaches too early, according to every health organization that opined on the matter, might also have contributed. But again, with a president who is saying that the data can all be withheld, I do understand why he's not taking it seriously. This is a problem of leadership. Miami-Dade has said that Miami-Dade County, has said that it has, or the mayor of Miami-Dade County, my apologies, the mayor of Miami-Dade County has said that the ICU in Miami-Dade, all the ICUs have not exceeded capacity and they are still okay. This despite the fact that the CDC dashboard has said that they are at 107% of capacity. We knew for a fact that this wasn't true. We had the data. The CDC dashboard is now dark. We will no longer be able to confirm or deny when he says that they are not at capacity. But at last check, Miami-Dade was at 107% of ICU capacity. I apologize. I've got some super chats, so let's Kwesa. So, 5,001. Thank you very much, Kwesa. We appreciate it. Thank you. We sincerely appreciate it. Oh, and I think I may have missed. Okay, no. So the U.S. not only has Trump, but has all these mini Trumps as governors in major. Yeah. We'd have done a breaking news on that, but most of the U.S. already knew. One other problem that nobody's talking about, and what we're going to do here is we are going to actually we're going to hit. I want to hit two quick things before we continue. Actually, I think now is the time. The first is this rather interesting tweet I thought from George Takei. George Takei, who really is very good at saying very interesting things, sort of very short way. As opposed to me, who I'm used to saying very boring things in an extraordinarily long way. George Takei wrote, "It took 95 days for the U.S. to reach 1 million cases of COVID-19. It took 43 days for the U.S. to reach 2 million, and it took 28 days for the U.S. to reach 3 million. The virus is accelerating. Even somebody with 1/100th of a brain cell of a brain should see that. This is in response to a number of people who said, well, the numbers are looking better. They are not. But we're not even going to be able to demonstrate that anymore because, once again, the CDC has been shut down from reporting these numbers. The other thing I wanted to read, and I think is going to be worth covering, was a Quora question. I like Quora. I'm thrilled. A couple of my answers on Quora are some of the top answers. It's just one of those fun things. I guess some people edit Wikipedia. I drop in on Quora. This was a question somebody had asked: how can a disease with a 1% mortality rate shut down the United States? The top answer is by Franklin Varro. There are two problems with this question. One, it neglects the law of large numbers, and two, it assumes that one of two things happen. Either you die or you're 100% fine, i.e. that there's a binary state. Die, or everything's okay. The U.S. population of 328 million. The U.S. has a population of 328 million. If 1% of the population dies, that's 3.2 million people dead. 3 million people dead would monkey wrench the economy no matter what. That more than doubles the number of annual deaths all at once. The second bit is that people keep talking about deaths. Deaths. Only 1% die. Just 1%. It's such a small number, no big deal, right? What about the people who survive? For every one person who dies, 19 more require hospitalization. 18 of those will have permanent heart damage for the rest of their lives. 10 will have permanent lung damage. 3 will have strokes. 2 will have neurological damage that leads to chronic weakness and loss of coordination. And 2 will have neurological damage that leads to loss of cognitive function. I do believe that having 2 people for every death, having 2 who have any kind of significant loss of cognitive function, will have an impact on the economy and a general lowering of the IQ of this country, which I don't think is a good thing. The thing that folks who keep going on about only 1% dead, the thing that they don't get is the choice isn't ruin the economy to save 1%. If we reopen the economy, it will be destroyed anyway. The U.S. economy cannot survive everyone getting COVID-19. He was asked to cite his sources. His sources are now out there, so that is, again, Franklin Varro. Top answer on Quora: how can a disease with 1% mortality shut down the U.S.? I think it's a good one, but it misses 2 very important things. This is extraordinarily optimistic, and here's why. First of all, the mortality rate is higher than 1%. The numbers that have been recognized nationally have floated between 2.5 and 3.7%, and even those are probably low. So 1%, no, we can double that right off the bat just for sort of the base minimum. The second problem is none of this considers secondary deaths. The hospital systems, the entire hospital infrastructure in Texas and Florida are under assault and in many cases barely functioning. And this is going to get worse. And the doctors haven't started getting sick. That's going to start happening. And it's going to start happening really pretty much any day now. Based on the numbers, a few are going to start getting sick. A week from today, a large number of doctors are going to start getting taken out. 2 weeks from today, it's going to start to get really bad. And the numbers used to have a max 30-minute waiting time in a year. Now ambulances are waiting 10 hours with people dying in the back before they can drop off their patients. And you think the people who are overseeing them in the ambulance aren't going to get sick? Here's what happens. If patients now have to travel 150 miles, in some places in Texas, they have to travel 150 miles to get medical attention. What happens if you have kidney failure and are being kept alive by dialysis once a week? Now, when kidney failure, depending on, if you require dialysis to stay alive, as long as you get that dialysis, you're fine. And you can stay alive. You can have a reasonably healthy life, 20 years, 30 years, so long as you get the dialysis. If the dialysis is no longer available, you will die. In any first world country, that shouldn't be a problem. Dialysis is reasonably easy to do. In Italy, when it got overwhelmed, they couldn't do it. So people where kidney failure was not considered lethal, it became lethal because everybody was overwhelmed trying to keep the COVID patients alive. There was no room for anything else. If you say I have kidney failure, like that's a chronic condition, we're dealing with acute ones now. It's triaged. You're not going to get help. If you need a heart transplant, lung transplant, if you need any other medical services to stay alive, get in line. In my view, those are COVID deaths. They're COVID deaths because if the system hadn't gotten overwhelmed with COVID, they wouldn't have died. So when you talk about what is the damage that's going to happen to the economy by COVID hitting this many people this quickly, if you haven't flattened the curve, if you haven't dealt with it well, you have to take into account the secondary deaths, the collateral damage. Nobody's talking about that. They are in a couple of counties in Texas, nowhere else. That's a problem because, again, with the 2-week lag period, by the time we recognize the problem, it's too late. We have to fix it before it hits. COVID is a big ship. When we make a course correction in our dealing with COVID, it takes 2 weeks before the effects of that new direction start to filter through. If we decide now we don't want our hospitals to get overwhelmed, and so we're going to lock down, it's too late. They will. Those are the two problems I have with Mr. Farrow's answer. It's an excellent answer, and he brings up a lot of things that haven't been brought up before, but he's extraordinarily optimistic. Jake, 4D, tea or cake or death? I think his sense of humor fits right in. Jake 4D again, $2. Yes, a cake and tea. All right. I hope you're going to join us for the Discord afterwards. We're going to be wrapping this up reasonably soon. A lot's been going on, and we're going to probably have to change the production schedule. I think one update a week will no longer be sufficient, and one every 2 weeks. Twice a week. We'll probably know. We're going to have to. A lot's happening. So, I thought that was a particularly good. So DeSantis has taken to blaming the media for the sudden burst of cases in his state, which happened exactly when the CDC predicted, and the way the CDC predicted, which we talked about here 2 weeks ago. This isn't a mystery. So, Miami-Dade mayor has said, that the ICU capacity did not exceed 100%, even though the last CDC record had it at 107%, until the CDC data was shut down. The Miami-Dade, the mayor of Florida's Miami-Dade County has also said that the county has no need to shut down yet. His argument is that the numbers are not bad enough. Once again, he's ignoring that the numbers are going to get that bad, and anything he takes is going to take 2 weeks to take effect. This is the exact mistake that everybody's been warned against time and time and time again. The numbers will be that bad, so he has to act now before it gets there. It was estimated that if New York had shut down 2 weeks early, they could have saved 10,000 lives by shutting down 2 weeks early. 10,000 lives. At this point, shutting down is what's best for individuals and for the economy. The main floor of Florida's Emergency Operations Center in Tallahassee has now been closed after 12 workers there have tested positive for COVID-19. This brings to light again this problem of now what we are about to see is a wave of emergency responders, police officers, and EMT workers getting sick. Dr. Peter Hotz, Dean of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College, has said that if we don't change, the United States will, quote, reach one of the most unstable times in the history of our country, which of course would include the American Civil War. Quote, we will have hospitals overwhelmed, not only in terms of ICU beds and hospitals, that's what he said, and that's bad, but exhausted hospital staff at hospitals and the staff themselves getting ill. We won't have enough manpower, human power to manage all this. By the way, imagine those hospitals right now. You work at one of those hospitals where there's a 10-hour waiting line for the ambulance to just get their patient into the door. A 10-hour. You think they're tired? You think they're getting a break? In Italy, we showed a picture of a nurse who collapsed and just fell unconscious on her keyboard as she was trying to write out a report. We're going to be seeing those pictures here now. And Italy begged us not to let that happen. And we didn't have to, and I know that because other countries chose not to. And we ignored it. Michael Westp, $5. I haven't slept well since November 2016. Yeah. Yeah. We're going to be wrapping this up soon. There's a lot to digest, and there's a lot going on. On July 8th, the mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, filed an executive order requiring that everybody in public wear a mask at all times. The governor of Georgia, Brian Kent, then filed an order saying that none of the local orders regarding masks could be enforced, thereby removing the Atlanta, Georgia order saying that you had to wear a mask in public. The mayor of Atlanta said, nope, you can't do that. You can't override one of my orders, and the order stands. The governor then filed a lawsuit against the mayor, claiming that she cannot proceed with she can't proceed with her order, and she can't also stop the reopening in Atlanta, which she has put a halt to. Said she can't do it. Quote, the mandate cannot be enforced, but her decision to shutter businesses and undermine economic growth is devastating. Atlanta's businesses are hurting, violent crime is up, and families are rightfully worried. I refuse to sit back and watch as a disastrous policies threaten the lives and livelihood of our citizens. We will fight to stop this reckless action and put people over pandemic politics. The reckless action is following her doctor's orders. That's the reckless action, just FYI. On last Wednesday, July 15th, he voided her executive order. The next day, she denied that he had the authority to void it. It is now getting settled in court. And now, the mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, and now I've lost her first name, and I want to get her first name right. Her last name is Bottoms. Another reason Keisha Lance Bottoms, who has been embroiled in this fight, has now tested positive for COVID-19. She attended a funeral and afterwards decided to get her family tested as a precaution. She took the test on June 29th. A week later, the results still had not come in. So she decided to get tested again, this time at the Rapid Response Testing Facility at Emory University. The test came back 12 hours later, and it came back positive for her, her husband, and one of her children. The next day, she got the results of the June 29th test. Almost 2 weeks later, she got the results. The results of that test, only her son was positive. If that had been a 12-hour test, there is reason to believe that they could have stopped it at her son, quarantined him, and kept the rest of the family from getting it. Now, at least 2 other people have gotten it, and because the test results took 2 weeks, anyone else, any 3 of them have come into contact with, may have gotten it. As well as anyone at the funeral. So contact tracing at this point is almost moot. South Korea has been very effective in containing this. One reason is the average turnaround time for a test for them is 12 hours. How many infections could have been saved if this test had been done quickly? This is another example of why information has to be freely available and as rapidly as possible. The U.S. is nowhere near anywhere else in testing. We're just not. Trump is lying about that, and he doesn't care. This is why you have to have information, and you have to have it quickly. We're an op-ed show, so I try to stick on the news as much as possible. But when you say something like this, that he's shut down the CDC and he's slowed down our access to information, I think if either Mayor Quiche Lance Bottoms or her husband dies, I think there's a very real argument that that life could have been saved if they had gotten the results in 12 hours instead of 2 weeks. Anybody else infected by them, and this is logarithmic, so they infect someone else, infects 10 people, infects 10 people, and so on and so forth, could have been saved if the results had been in on time. South Korea is kicking our fucking ass on this. And they have been for some time. Most other countries are. Trump, meanwhile, is saying the reason so many people are looking like they're sick is because he's done such a great job. Something is very wrong. Trump does, in fact, continue to claim that the increased testing is what's responsible for the higher numbers and that he's getting blamed for doing such a great job and that we are leading the world in our response to COVID cases. However, we still have over 30% now of the world's COVID deaths. Over 30% of the people who've died of this have died in the U.S., but only 4% of the world population live here. That's not testing. Testing, you don't have to test to see if someone's dead. We can usually tell. They're not dying because we're testing too much. We have 30% of the deaths and 4% of the world population. Good news is we will no longer be able to tell what percentage of the deaths we have because Trump will now control that data as well. Oh, sorry, I thought we had another super chat. We do not. My apologies. Trump continues to suggest that we need to dial back the testing, that there is too much testing. He also continues to brag that his response has been amongst the best in the world, and that testing. Admiral Brett Guarnier, sorry, I think I pronounced that incorrectly, of the Department of Health and Human Services now says that there is a huge lag in testing results and that, quote, even the larger commercial labs are having delays of up to 10 to 12 days. We can't deny that that happens. More testing, most testing states are now having difficulty getting tests back within 5 to 7 days. There's a reported shortage of swabs, chemical reagents, testing equipment across the entire Sun Belt all the way to New York. This is a problem because testing is a huge part of an effective strategy combined with what is called contact tracing. You find somebody's positive, you figure out who they've gotten in contact with, and you test them, and anyone who's positive, then the third part of the strategy, you isolate them. You can't stop the disease. You can't stop it, but you can slow it down. But you can't do it if it takes 2 weeks to find out who's positive, because by that point, they've infected a great many people, and you would have found out anyway, because at that point, usually they get quite ill. This policy of trace and isolate, test, trace, and isolate has been the cornerstone of every success story so far in containing this virus, and the United States is at present incapable of adequately employing that policy. We're going to end with something. I think it's interesting. Hopefully, we're not going to get demonetized for this. I think you're going to enjoy it. I enjoyed it. It's also depressing. And then I think there may be one piece I missed. I'm going to quickly check on that. But barring that, we'll go ahead into the Discord and we'll all talk. But let's do this. This is a video. I forget the name of the group that posted it, but it is in the description. 2 men who have face masks for sale. Not for sale. They're giving away face masks in California. Let's take a look.
Needs a mask. We've got them. You don't need one?
No.
Why not?
I don't know if anybody has ever explained to you that breathing carbon monoxide is not healthy.
I heard about that, but I heard about this other thing.
Called coronavirus?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not doing it.
Nice.
I know where I'm going when I die. You guys?
I don't know.
So I'm not
The sky?
Hopefully to a pokey shot.
Where do you go?
Going up.
You
Oh,
don't want to go to hell, do you?
No, that'd suck.
Yeah.
You know, the mask tells me I'm supposed to be doing something.
Right.
When I'm out here, nobody's going to tell me to wear a mask.
Right.
For sure.
If we had a cooler design, would that make a difference?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, later, dudes. Yeah, be
God
well.
bless.
Sir, do you need a mask?
No, I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Cool.
Hey, let me ask you this. Truly. You get smoking weed?
Excuse me, my man. We're giving away free masks.
He's smart. He's socially distancing. Sorry, sir.
Dude, what
Yeah,
kind of
for sure.
sunscreen do you use?
Just like the Walmart brand.
Oh,
I
nice.
just use like the 50 spray. You know?
Dude, you got such an even base.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I've been out a lot. You know, when you get laid off from work, you got time to hang out at the beach, right?
Dude, same here.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can only give you masks if you wear it on the beach. We
I
should.
can't do it. I'm walking 20 miles, man. It ain't gonna work.
That's a long walk, dude. Congrats.
You can't wear a mask if you walk.
I don't know. Maybe it obscures vision.
I think salt water kills this shit. If you breathe the salt water, it's healthy.
What? Oh, dude, I'm gonna put salt on everything now.
No, sea salt. Sea salt. Other salt, you can get fucking, it can kill you.
What's your cost?
Nudist for masks?
Seriously?
Yeah, we're nudists.
Right on.
A little bit of action
I hang
there.
out on a couple nude beaches myself.
Oh, right on, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Drop a little dong there, yeah.
Is that what you guys call it?
Dropping dong.
Yeah.
Dropping down.
Yeah.
Right on.
Do you need a mask?
No, thank you.
Why not?
Because I live here.
What do you mean?
I live here.
Hey,
Oh,
do you
you
guys
got
need a
one.
mask?
No, we don't. Why?
You don't?
Because there's this thing called coronavirus.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a bullshit lie.
Really?
Yeah, I know. Go fuck yourself.
Who made up the lie?
Hey, go fuck yourself.
What?
You heard me?
He's pissed.
I love passion.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, Pinky.
You need masks?
No.
All right. See you later.
Do you guys have masks?
No.
You guys are just going around willy-nilly with no masks?
Yeah.
If I give you these masks, are you guys going to wear them?
Sure.
You swear on it?
Yes.
On Tyler, the Creator?
Yes, sir.
All right, dude.
Whoa, wow. All right, see you guys.
Later.
Dude, everyone here is so cool. We're handing out masks if you want.
Oh, I have masks in my bag. Thank you.
Why aren't you guys wearing them?
Because we left them in our cars.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So,
I'm good, thanks.
damn it.
Are you pro mask, bro?
Do you want a mask?
It's all fake, dude. Come on. I'm good, man.
Nah, man, that's just
No.
that's a
I
fraud, bro.
like freedom, dog.
I like fresh air. Just shut down the fucking country. That's bullshit, man.
I'm good.
But does wearing a mask shut down the country?
When you close down half the economy, yeah, I think so.
But can't we open it up quicker if we all wear masks?
Nah, dude, that's a talking point on the TV, bro. He says it's not a mask, it's a muzzle.
What?
What does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
What? Do you know what a muzzle is?
No.
Who's God to you guys?
Oh, good question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Just a benevolent superseding intelligence.
Hey, what's up, Rick?
So fucking cool.
Dude, Rick is the coolest dude.
What up, dude? Do you wear a mask?
God does love me.
Do you wear a mask? What?
I think
Oh, he's coming back. Do you need a mask? Get ready to run.
What else you want?
Just to give masks.
No, look, you're not making my fucking rights and not my rights, first of all.
We're just trying to hand
I don't
out.
give a fuck what you're trying to do. You believe in a mask? I don't.
That's cool.
Fucking leave it alone. Or
We're just-
if you want some of me, come on and get this.
No, we're not trying to fight anyone. We just want to hand out masks.
I don't
Yeah,
give a
we're,
fuck
do you want
about
the
that.
mask? Maybe we do a happy hour at Sharky's later.
Don't be an asshole.
Well, we learned a valuable lesson today.
Don't hand out masks when you're wearing sandals, dude. If you're gonna hand out masks, wear shoes you can fight in. Or run. Better to run.
And don't bring your favorite shirt, because it might get muffed up.
Yep.
Oh, that was fun. So I did miss one other thing. We're kind of off topic with it, so I probably won't get back to it. There have been what appears to be the police have been picking up protesters, and they've been snagging them without showing identification, without even wearing uniforms or any identifying marks, taking them to some form of court, processing them, and ejecting them without giving them any receipts, paperwork, or anything like that. The reports are unconfirmed. There's been some footage of it, and there's been several reported cases of it, so we'll keep an eye out on it. It would appear to be a violation of civil rights, and I think there are some other concerns with that kind of behavior. So far, people have just been picked up, thrown into a van, hooded, and released. We'll be discussing that later too. That's also been in our news section. So if you want to come join us on our Discord, I will be there. Hopefully you guys will be there too. We're going to talk about this. We do have a news section where people drop whatever's going on. We have a couple different discussions going on all this stuff. Like I said, our regular shows, you have to be part of our YouTube channel. Shows like this we have in the so shows like this will often simulcast, but our regular shows we only do on YouTube. We have Dr. Richard Carrier coming up. We have had to postpone our Carrier and Ozzy on philosophy of religion. Looking forward to that. We're still going to have it, but it has to be postponed. Ozzy was unable to make it, but so we're still going to have on Dr. Carrier. We're going to talk about the question of what religion was Hitler. I'm sure that won't be a controversial topic. A few other good shows going up, but I'm also going to be doing a few shows, so and I'm looking forward to them. We have been joined by Neil 604 Atheist, who we had on here and was an absolute delight. If you haven't checked him out, check him out. One of the things very close to my heart, as everybody here knows, is deconversion stories. We've been doing a host of our own deconversion stories. We had a deconversion story of R.N. Ra right after 604 Atheist did it, and it was just great. We enjoyed having him on. He is a spectacular guy and he's a genuine humanitarian too. So I'm looking forward to that one. We talked about that during that show, and it's taken this long, I think, for everybody to get to doing it. I'm looking forward. I'm going to be on 604 Atheist, and I had the date for that written down. I don't know what it is, but I think is here. So, and I think we're hopefully, with any luck, if you might be able to grab a link to his channel so people can check that out. Hopefully you guys will see me while I'm there, but hopefully too, you're just going to take a look at that content. He did a deconversion of Nate Brody that I just really liked. It wasn't, this huge magical thing, but Nate had a lot of really cool stories that I think was good, and Neil is just really laid back, easy to talk to, and it was a great conversation, and there are a lot of great conversations there. So I hope you guys will check that out. I'm also going to be on Divine Disbelief. We're going to be discussing teaching. We brought that up today. I actually am a certified teacher. I've had some experiences, so we're gonna talk about that. I don't know, maybe we'll talk about the American education system, but that's going to be a lot of fun on Divine Disbelief. I'm going to be retiring to the Discord. I'll be there in a few minutes, and we'll talk about this. We'll talk about anything else. Again, if you want to, please like and subscribe. There are a lot of you there. It really helps out the channel if you like the channel. So if you like this channel, like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. If you don't like our content, Neil is responsible for most of it, so go to his channel and give him a thumbs down. It's entirely. Is he still in the live chat? I'm going to assume he's not in the live chat. Nobody tell him this. Nobody tell him I said that. So, do I have to be certifiable to be a teacher? No, it's just a bonus. It's helped me immensely. So we'll have. Sorry, I haven't. It's just the rundown was huge tonight. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate all the super chats. Thank you all. We also, like I said, we've been streaming this to the Discord, and we've been streaming a lot of these on the back end. So the people who they're patrons, you get to see the green room. You get to hang out with us, and sometimes hang out with the guests. So I hope let's anybody who wants to, let's talk. We'll talk about the show. We'll talk about anything else. Thank you all for joining us. Neil, thank you so much for stopping by, reminding me. I can't believe I flubbed that. So I'm looking forward to going on his channel, and I hope you guys will check it out. And that and Neil dropped the link himself. That's what we modded him so he could drop links. So I appreciate Neil you dropping that. Thank you. That link is the channel that you give a thumbs down to if you don't like the show. I mean, that's the channel that I'm going to be on, and it's just take a look. He does good work. Thank you all for joining us, and I will see you guys all in just a few minutes. Have a good evening, folks.